So let's continue our discussion of section 2.5, and we're talking about markup and markup rate problems. So we've got a couple of examples we're going to use right here. The very first thing to remember is that we're going to use our model. When it comes to markup, the selling price is equal to the cost, and we mean the cost to the seller, plus the markup rate times the cost. So here's an example of how that might be used. The cost to a wholesale distributor for a smoke detector is $24. That's how much the distributor pays. The distributor then sells the detector for $32.40. So what is our markup rate? Okay, so the very first thing is we have to go through, and if we're using a model like this one, we should know what are we given and what do we need to solve for. Well, in this model right here, we need S, which is the selling price. We need C, which is the cost to the distributor, and R, which is the markup rate. Well, we're told that the selling price, S, is $32.40. So there's S, $32.40. All right, so far so good. And that our cost, in this case, the cost to the distributor itself, is $24. So what do? Rate, we're being asked that. We don't know what the rate is. So once we've lined up what we know and what we don't know, we go ahead and put that into our formula and see what we can come up with. So in this case, 32.40, which I'm going to abbreviate. I'm going to make that 32.4, and then we'll translate that back into dollars and cents later, will be equal to our original $24 plus the rate times the cost of $24. According to our formula right here, cost plus the rate times the cost. Well, this is an equation that we can solve for R by following the algebraic steps here and solving equations, which is we're going to subtract the constant term from both sides. In this case, that's going to give us 8.4 is equal to 24 times R, instead of R times 24, same thing. So we'll divide both sides by 24 in order to isolate R. So now we're going to have to do a little bit of division, so I'll bring it over here and we'll do it by hand. Since we're not using calculators in the class, you're going to want to be able to know how to do this. So let's see, 8.4. 8.4. Okay, so we're going to have to make sure that we bring up the decimal right here, and let's find out, is there any whole number that we can multiply by 24 to get 8.4? Well, the answer is no. But we know that 24 will go into 84. If you take 24 twice, you're going to get 48. If you take 24 three times, that seems like it might be close enough. Let's see. 3 times 4 is 12. Bring up the 1. 3 times 2 is 6 plus 1 more gives us 72. Yeah, this is going to be about as far as we're going to get. So we're going to subtract. And when we subtract, of course, going down here, we'll just ignore the decimal point for the moment. We get 1 left over. 4 minus 2 is 2. And since there was no digit following, we add on our own 0 and bring it down. And now we're going to ask how many times will 24 go into 120? Well, I happen to know that 24 times 10 would be 240, and 240 is twice as much as 120. So half as much as 10 would be 5. Let's see if that works. 5 times 4 is 20. Bring up the 2. 2 times 5 is 10 plus 2 more is 12. Yeah, sure enough. That gives us our remainder of 0. And so 0.35, we come up with the figure R equals 0.35. But don't forget that we want to make sure that this is in percentage form. 0.35 then means that our markup rate will be 35%. Well, let's try the next one. Let's see if this same kind of thing can be used. So our model, remember, is the selling price is equal to the cost times the rate, markup rate times the cost. So what do we know here? The selling price of a can of paint is $26, and the markup rate used by the paint store is 30%. How much is the original cost of the paint? Remember that cost, when we say cost, we're talking about the cost to the dealer. So setting up our model right here, we know that S is equal to $26. That's what we're told. C, the cost to the dealer. Well, we don't know what that is. That's our unknown. But we know what the markup rate this time, and this time we're told that the rate is 30%. Now, before we go using rate of 30, we're not going to just stick 32 into any equation. Remember, this has to be in decimal form. So we're going to actually use 0.30, or just plain 0.3 for R. All right, so now we can substitute this into our formula. S equals C plus RC, so 26 is equal to C, which we don't know, plus 0.3 times C. Oh, well, this is a perfectly legitimate equation right here. If you don't recognize it, of course, the coefficient for C is 1 right here. We just take 1 times the cost, and we get cost. So if we take 1C and we add 0.3 more C's, that means we've got 26 is equal to 1.3 C. So if we want to get the cost, C by itself, we're going to have to divide on both sides by 1.3. So let's carry out our division onto the side right here. 1.3 divides into 26 by, well, if I have a decimal out here, what I always do is I move this decimal over, which means that if there was a decimal in here, it gets moved over 1. So in fact, we're taking 13 into 260 as our value for the cost. So let's see, 13 goes into 26 twice. 2 times 13 is 26. We subtract that away. We get 0. Of course, if we bring down the other 0, 13 goes into 0 0 times. Well, we know how that's going to turn out, and we're going to get our remainder of 0. So we're lucky. This actually works out to be a nice round number of 20 for C. But don't forget to answer the actual question. Our cost to the dealer for the paint is $20 for a can of paint.